The Gallaeci or Gallaeci were a large Celtic tribal federation who inhabited Gallaecia, the northwestern corner of Iberia, a region roughly corresponding to what is now Galicia, northern Portugal and western Asturias, before and into the Roman period. They spoke a Celtic language related to northeastern Hispano-Celtic, usually called Gallaecic, Gallaecian, or northwestern Hispano-Celtic. The region was annexed by the Romans in the time of Caesar Augustus during the Cantabrian Wars, a war which initiated the assimilation of the Gallaeci into Latin culture. History. The fact that the Gallaeci did not adopt writing until the first contacts with the Roman Empire makes the study of history before the first contacts with Romans impossible. However, early allusions to this people are present in ancient Greek and Latin authors prior to the conquest, which allows the reconstruction of a few historical events of this people since the 2nd century BC. Thanks to Silius Italicus, it is known that between the years 218 and 201 BC, during the Second Punic War, some Gallaecian troops were involved in the fight in the ranks of Carthaginian Hannibal against the Roman army of Scipio Africanus. Also Silius Italicus added a short description of the Gallaecian contingent and their curious military tactics. After Silius Italicus, Appian of Alexandria mentioned in his book Ibericae, the first military conflict known between Gallaeci and Romans. In it, Appian narrates the events that occurred during the Lusitanian War, mentioning that this last year, after being cheated by the Lusitanian chief the Quintus Servilius Caepio's army devastated few Gallaecian and Vetonian regions. The attack on these southern Gallaecian peoples, probably in the modern Alto Douro, near the border with Vetins, had a character of punishment, due to the Gallaecian support to Lusitanians. Archaeology. Archaeologically, the Gallaeci were a local Atlantic Bronze Age people. During the Iron Age they received several influences, from Central Western Europe, and from the Mediterranean. The Gallaeci dwelt in hill forts, and the archaeological culture they developed is called castroculture, a hill fort culture with round houses. The Gallaecian lifestyle was based in land occupation, especially by fortified settlements that are known in Latin language as castrum, being able to vary its size from a small village of less than 1 hectare, and great forts with more than 10 hectares denominated oppida or citadel, being these latter more common in the southern half of their traditional settlement. This mode of inhabiting the territory by hill forts was common throughout Europe during the Bronze and Iron Ages. Getting in the northwest of the Iberian Peninsula, the name of castroculture, or hill forts culture, which alludes to this type of settlement before the Roman arrival. However, an important quantity of Gallaecian hill forts continued to be inhabited until the 5th century AD. These fortified villages tended to be located in the hills, rocky promontories and peninsulas surrounded on the sea. It improved its visibility, advocacy and the domain over territory. The location of these settlements was also studied to a better control of natural resources used by its inhabitants. The Gallaecian hill forts and oppidas maintain a great homogeneity, presenting evident commonalities. Political territorial organization. The Gallaecian political organization is not known with certainty, but it is very probable that they were divided into small independent states that comprised in its interior a great number of small forts, commanded these states by the figure of a local king, which the Romans called princeps as in other parts of Europe. Each Gallaecian considered himself also a member of the hill fort where lived and the state, people to whom they belonged, and that the Romans called populace. Among all, some of them left us their names. Gallaeci tribes. Origin of the name. The Romans named the entire region north of the Douro, where the Castro culture existed, in honor of the Castro people that settled in the area of Cal, the Gallaeci. The Romans established a city in the south of the region which they called Portus Cal, today's Porto, in northern Portugal. When the Romans first conquered the Gallaeci, they ruled them as part of the province of Lusitania, but later created a new province of Gallaeci or Gallaeci. The names Gallaeci and Cal are the origin of today's Gaia, Galicia, and the Gal root in Portugal, among many other place names in the region. Gallaecian language. Gallaecian or Gallaecic was a Celtic language or group of languages or dialects, closely related to Celtiberian, spoken at the beginning of our era in the northwestern quarter of the Iberian Peninsula, more specifically between the western North Atlantic coasts and an imaginary line running north-south and linking Oviedo and Merida, just like it is the case for Illyrian or Ligurian languages. Its corpus is composed by isolated words and short sentences contained in local Latin inscriptions, or glossed by classic authors, together with a considerable number of names, anthroponyms, ethnonyms, theonyms, toponyms, contained in inscriptions, or surviving up to date as place, river or mountain names. Gallaecian deities. Through the Gallaecian Roman inscriptions, is known part of the great pantheon of Gallaecian deities, sharing part not only by other Celtic or Celticized peoples in the Iberian Peninsula, such as Astur, especially the more western, or Lusitanian, but also by Gauls and Britons, among others. This will highlight the following. Bandua, Gallaecian god of war, similar to the Roman god Mars. Great success among the Gallaeci of Braga. Berebrius, god of the otherworld and beyond. The largest shrine dedicated to Berebrio documented until now, stood in the fort of the Torch of Donan, in the Morozos Peninsula, front of the Siaz Islands. Bormanicus, god of hot springs, similar to the Gaulish god, Bormanus. Nabia, goddess of waters, of fountains and rivers. In Galicia still nowadays, as in northern Portugal, numerous rivers that still persists with his name, as the river Navia. Ships, and even in northern Portugal there is still the idol fountain, dedicated to the goddess Ship. Cossus, warrior god, who attained great popularity among the southern Gallaeci, was one of the most revered gods in ancient Gallaecia. Several authors pointed out that Cosabanduran are the same god under different names. Ryu, associated with the supreme god hierarchy, justice and also death. Lagus, or Lucubo, linked to prosperity, trade and craft occupations. His figure is associated with the spear. It is one of God's most common among the Celts, and many place names derive from it throughout Europe, Celtic Galicia to Loudon, and even the naming of people as Gallaecia Loquet, Coventino, goddess of abundance and fertility, strongly associated with the water nymphs. Their cult record for most Western Europe, from England to Gallaecia. Endovelicus, god of prophecy and healing, showing the faithful in dreams.